Hi guys, something a little bit different here. Um, Again, I'll start my video by thanking all my present subscribers currently and my new subscribers to date. Thank you ever so much for subscribing. If you haven't already subscribed, please seriously consider subscribing to my channel. I will be bringing you new things and updates, general life things in the near future as well. Maybe a bit of nature as well, who knows, if we're allowed outside. Really what I want to speak about at the moment is the state of industry in the UK. One of the most is to suffer really is the car production, the decreasing car production over the last 30 years really. The UK just doesn't seem to be able to recover. When I was a boy, I would always remember, we had different marques. It's not so today. We would have the Jag, which was one below the Rolls Royce, made in Britain, looked beautiful, sedately rolling down the road, and anybody that owned a Jag, you knew they had a place in society. They'd be a certain type of guy, or obviously women driving it. That's probably too big for the women. They were a big old lump. I remember when a gallon of petrol could be bought for under £1 a gallon. That's showing my age. It's now over £5.50, £6 a gallon, I believe, if you work it out. Anyway, I've just seen a quick on Sky News that's really prompted me to make this video. It may not interest many of you, but just why can we not produce a vehicle? Why? And what makes us not able to be able to produce a vehicle? Well, this article here says the industry figures reveal the scale of the disruption. Well, it would do, but in my opinion, that's been running down for a number of years. Germany, Japan leads the ways in car production, and they have done for many years now. I remember my father having a 1978 Mazda 929 that had 360,000 miles on it when he parted with it for the wicked metalworm rust that had gone onto it. The car still run like it was brand new. I even remember the registration number on that side. It's PCL 252R. It was a lovely old car, 929 estate, completely reliable, never let him down, never missed a beat. But, you've got to look at it this way, yeah? Last year, under 1 million cars were produced for the UK. They fell by another 30% here to 928 cars output. This is absolutely unbelievable from a country that has an estimated 70 million inhabitants. We've got the whole of Europe, the whole of the world where we export to. 10,000 job losses were announced over the year by car makers and suppliers. These weren't furloughed, these are real families, everyone with a real story, 10,000 of them. Why has the British car industry slumped so much? When I was a child, I remember my father teaching me, see here 2.3% on the year earlier. Now, I remember my father teaching me that Rolls-Royce was the Rolls-Royce of vehicles. It was like the number one. He had a few as well. Used to get one every year. Used to have a 2-year waiting list for them. Jaguar was the poor man's Rolls-Royce. Mercedes was the Rolls-Royce, of course, of Germany. BMW was the mid-range, like the Jag of Germany. And then you had Volkswagen. He used to liken to the Ford or the Vauxhall of the UK. Now, I remember seeing the first eyes on the back of German cars, which really signalled the demise in the technology and the industry, I believe, from output of the UK for cars. Because I said to my dad one day, I said, what does that 320i mean? What does the I mean, Dad? And he said, well, it's called fuel injection, son. Fuel injection is where the fuel is basically put straight into the cylinder and a metered amount, where it's a lot more efficient. It hasn't got to be pumped into a float chamber, into a carburetor to be mixed to then go into the engine. You see, it's a lot more efficient. It puts the air in through the valve, puts the fuel in through the valve, the injector, and away it goes. A lot quicker, a lot more powerful. And I started looking around for eyes on the back of other cars, and I couldn't find them. And one day my dad opened the bonnet of a Jaguar 4.2, which was the equivalent, I don't know, of the BMW 5 Series, the 528i, with the single exhaust out the back, and it had fuel injection on it, and it was a quick car. And he showed me these two round things on top of what I later found out were manifolds. He said these are SU carburetors. They're single chambers. They probably won't mean much to many people, but he said these were on cars just after the war. He says, and we're still using them now. He said fuel injection is fire. He says all the German cars and all the Japanese cars, they have Solex, they have Weber and twin chokes, so they've got different jets to idle. And it got me thinking as a young child, why do we still have the Princess, the Ambassador, the Rover SDI, which was renowned, still running on SU carburetors, still the EFI engines, which were produced, the injection system were either Lucas CAV, which was French, or the Bosch Tronic system, which of course is German, again German. And they were renowned at 40 to 50,000 miles. They seized the engines. They had engine failure and so forth, when the BMWs and Mercedes were proven to go on. Looking over to Japan, the engines are indestructible. You buy a Honda today, you buy a Honda that's 20 years old, and the engine's still purging away, quite happy, ticking over. The only objection I've got is because I'm 6'2.5", the half-inch apparently to the missus don't make a difference, so I always add it on. When I get into a Honda Prelude or something like that, anything really under a Lexus, everything's that much smaller because the Japanese race is a smaller race. It's renowned to be. Therefore, I do have problems adjusting the seats, heading the ceiling. I made the missus get rid of a beautiful Honda Accord 5-door, 1800, low mileage, fully tooled up, standard from factory, because I got stuck in the back seat of it and I had to crawl out, which was quite funny because I do actually suffer from a severe back issue, which only progressively going to get worse. I also found that the Honda's driving position didn't give me, because of my size compared to the Japs, the driving position. I ran Jaguars myself for many years, and I'm a great fan of the Jaguars, the XJ6s, the AJ40 engines in. I went from the 2.9, which was a V12 cut in half, right up to the new 4 litres V8s, the X308s. And I got fed up of sitting on the hard shoulder. The AJ40 lump, the straight 6, was absolutely astoundingly reliable. It was economical. The 2.9 was gutless. The 3.6 was the best one I ever had. The 3.2 was quick, fuel efficient, but the 3.6 was just about right. Then I went to the X303 and the 308s, which probably won't mean much, but they were the V8 engines, inspired by the German 7 Series, 730i and the 740i quad cams. Well, Jaguar had to do something. Unfortunately, they used a cheaper Nicosil, and it fell off the bores, and they suffered blowbacks, and again, reliability issues. I had 2 that happened on me, sitting at the roadside for electrical issues. One of them, in fact, I couldn't turn off the engine without pulling out the fog light switch. One day I closed the passenger side door and the engine shut off. Unfortunately, it was an ignition problem. We changed all the relays, we did everything to that car. It was in the Jaguar garage, they gave up on it. Jaguar specialist, they gave up on it too. Very talented guy. And in the end, I sold the car, spares and repairs, for £300, and it was mint condition. And I went on to BMWs, and I'm still on BMWs and Mercedes to this day. Now, I don't like that fact, because my father fought in the Second World War. We fought to defeat the Germans and the Japanese, and he was Royal Engineers. He then went paratroop, which was the first SAS gliders, paratrooping. Then he was Wingate Chindit at the end of the war, crew of 2,000 people. He was in the first and the second push. Now, as he's told me the stories, bless his soul, when he was alive, of the conflicts and the hand-to-hand he served with the Gurkhas, very loyal to the British nation, the Gurkhas, superb people, nothing but praise for them. He told me these stories, and I suppose years ago I would have been a bit biased to the Germans and the Japanese. I'm not any longer. I've figured out once you wake up, you get beyond a certain plateau of, you don't see people as a race or a gender. I don't see, apart from attraction, I don't see a man or a woman or a gay man or a lesbian woman or transgender any different to any other human being. You get to this plateau, and it's quite beautiful, where it just doesn't matter. And it really doesn't matter. So now I'm completely non-biased by anything, and it's beautiful. That's why I'm non-political. I'm non-religious, but I'm not non-religious, and I'm not non-political. And until you get to that plateau on that plane, you cannot understand. Somebody told me that before I reached it, and I couldn't understand it, so I don't expect anybody other. But why is the British car industry in such shit street? It's quite simple. After what I've just been talking about, the Second World War, we put sanctions on Germany and Japan that they could never rearm themselves. They couldn't arm, they couldn't even buy a handgun, they couldn't be in possession of a knife. I mean, it was that bad. We sanctioned them that they had to inform us and ask the great nations, the G7 and so forth, that, if they did want nuclear power, they'd have to ask for it, and they'd have to inform us every step of the way. Just so we never really had another atrocity of that kind. Whether we do today or not with the present situation, I'm not sure. It's probably worse. But so what they did is they turned around and they went, well, what are we going to do? We can't arm ourselves, we can't spend our money on arms, we can't employ people to make weapons, so what are we going to do? Well, they sunk their money into industry, and they built plants, and they made everybody equal. The Japanese are renowned for making people equal. The managing director will sit in the same canteen as the staff. On the line, the bloke bolting the wheels on will sit next to the managing director, the foreman. There is no segregation whatsoever. Everybody is equal, and so it should be. The same as our society should be. It's not, but it should be. The same as Germany went, well, all we can do is invest in cars. Of course, Germany, a very hard race. They tried to make the Mercedes a bit weaker, and it failed, it rotted out, so they've gone back to the strength again. But they're a very hard race, and they make things to last, and they're very good engineers, simply because they had nothing else to engineer. They only had cars to engineer. Therefore, they engineered their cars the way we decided we were going to spend our money on weapons, and we would arm ourselves to the brim, and the atom bomb was an inspiration, but it should have been a warning to the world that nobody should ever arm themselves with nuclear weaponry ever again. However, not learning from lessons in history, we went ahead and we developed the best, most powerful weapons of mass destruction we could, and we designed them, put them on the shelf, and we said, right, we're going to build these. Unfortunately, like we're showing in a global pandemic at the moment, apart from the vaccine, even the new flight corridors and the flight shutdowns and the quarantines, it's taking forever to implement, and it did with the weapons. So much so that by the time we built them, they were obsolete anyway. Somebody had come up with another, much better, harder, quicker plan. We then trashed them weapons and went on to spend more money onto other weapons, while our car industry was sitting there. We had the Allegro rebranded into the Princess. We had the Marina. We only had one shell. We had to rebrand it into the ITAL to try and make it sell. The Princess was born with a boot. It should have always been a hatchback. It was a family-sized car. We had the Jaguar that was aimed at the executive with the boot on it and the Prestige. But British Leyland had to take on Jaguar and go one step further with the Princess. And they said, no, we're not going to make it to a hatchback. We'll put it onto boot as a mid-range executive saloon car. Even though it had the shape of a hatchback, it was aimed at the executives. It was wrong. Families bought it and found out it wasn't fit for purpose. So they moved on to a Cortina Estate, or if they could afford it, a Japanese 818 or 929, such as my dad did. He couldn't afford the BMW at this time, so he went for the Japanese alternative, the reliability factor. We then carried on spending mass money on arms and forgetting that we needed new factories. While Germany and Japan built factories that far outdid ours, far outpriced ours, we carried on in the old places like Ford's at Dagenham. We employed people in unfit conditions on old bottles, on old technology. When one man runs out of bolts, we press a button and we don't stop the line. We let the line run without that part being put onto the car, and it's then sent to the cripple yard for a week, a month, a year. Then unqualified people, somebody that fits a door, goes and fits the calipers. They've had no experience of it because they run out of nuts on the line initially, and that car is never tested, and it's sold on the forecourt to the general public. We then had this great labour benefits scandal where you could literally go into your doctor's, self-certify yourself as being ill, and go back the following week. You wouldn't be tested or anything of the kind. You just say, I've got a sore leg, I've damaged my elbow, I've fallen into a piece of metal on site and I've got a headache, so I'm unfit for work. Well, it soon cottoned on at the Dagenham factory, and over 50% of the workforce was reported to be on long-term sick. That's not including the short-term sick, that's a long-term sick. Any company cannot survive paying half its workforce, which they were, at full pay for 3 years, and having to employ another 50% of workforce at full pay for that 3 years. The Fiesta crumbled. We found ways to cut it back. One way was we won't fit a cigarette lighter because it saves £1 a car. They did that throughout the range and cut back to make the Fiesta, which was at the forefront of the motor industry. It was the real Super Mini. When British Leyland failed with the Metro, which should have been all that, but they found out they put airbags on it, same as the Princess, without the pump, because Citroën wouldn't allow them to patent the system, and it failed. Citroen still has the same system, it's working strong, and I'm not a fan of the French cars, but it just is. Our cars have gone to Jaguar, China. China now runs Jaguar. The steel on a Jaguar is recycled larders. Where did we go wrong? It's easy to see, isn't it? We bought nuclear weapons when we should have been invested in an industry because they're going to be obsolete. We were investing in an industry that wasn't even there. While Japan and Germany went, we'll rule the world. Think of a sports bike, where it's made. What country is it made in? What manufacturer? Think of a car that you would desire to drive down the road in. What car would you sooner get into? Many will disagree with me. That's fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But the way I see it, we spent our money in the wrong place and now it's getting a bit late. As always, guys, it's my opinion. It's what I see in the world. It's things that I investigate, I look at. It's my opinion, the same as you've got an opinion. I am no way shooting anybody down for their opinion, and I'm not calling anybody out on my videos for that. If you've got an opinion, don't keep it to yourself, put it in the comments below. I'm not going to shoot you down for that either. But don't go shooting other people down, i.e. don't shoot the messenger that, oh, you're wrong, you're this. Let's debate it. As always, my message to everybody is if you haven't subscribed, please think of doing so. Thanks ever so much for watching my video, it really is appreciated. I will hopefully be doing some more things on cars because I am, believe it or not, a car and a motorcycle nut. Please share, please subscribe if you haven't done already, but above all things, spread the love. Keep the peace, the harmony. Harmonise yourself with this world and others. You'll be amazed how much love comes back from it. And it's just a vicious circle until you end up respecting it. That's why I say love, harmony, peace and respect. So as I say, guys, love, harmony, peace and respect. Until my next video, thanks for watching. God bless.